Now, an interesting fact about Columbus is that even before, like up to his death, Columbus thought he had found a fast way to the East Indies. He had no idea that he had discovered a new landmass that separated Europe from Asia. So he died believing that he had found the East Indies. Now, as Columbus travels back and forth to these places, he's bringing things with him. So he creates what is commonly known as the Columbian Exchange. Now, much of what we look at and say, wow, that is as American gets, is a result of the Columbian Exchange. When we look at a farm and you see wheat fields and horses and cows and pigs, those are all things that actually came from Europe. So let's go back through some of those things. Wheat and rice are two foods that were definitely brought. And then animals, cows, pigs, horses, and sheep. All of those animals are European animals. And they did not exist here in the United States prior to Christopher Columbus making his voyages starting in 1492. We even see things such as thistles, dandelions, honeybees, things that were brought over for the purpose of either creating food sources for while they were in the Caribbean, or they were using these things as transportation for horses, goods that they could trade with native people. So all of those are not necessarily bad things that came out of the Columbian Exchange. However, something really bad did come out of the Columbian Exchange. Something really bad that came out of the Columbian Exchange is the introduction of disease. As you know from last year with our study of European history, that Europe was ravaged by disease, whether that's the Black Death or any number of other things that truly would have killed off, that did kill off a lot of Europe. Those diseases had never been introduced to these native populations that Christopher Columbus was going to. So a major disease that's going to kill up to 90%. 9 out of every 10 people is going to be smallpox. Smallpox is going to just devastate the native populations, because the Europeans, their immune system, they had already developed an immunity against it, and they're bringing smallpox though with them. So what's really going to again impact native populations negatively is the fact that now the population has been reduced by 90%. Well, Columbus and other Spanish individuals have started mining. So they have gold mines that they have built, and they were using the native people to work in those gold mines. Well, now that 90% of the population is gone, we need a group of people to work in the gold mines. So what Columbus does is he goes to Africa and he brings African slaves to the Americas. Now, the thing that you have to keep in mind is that Columbus did not invent slavery. Slavery's been around since ancient times. This is something that's not a new concept in the late 1400s, but slavery is introduced to the Americas in the early 1500s. Now, in the late 1400s, Europe was trading with Africa for slaves. They were trading things like guns and other tradable goods, and they felt that bringing those workers here would profit them through the gold mines. Now, the problem is they're going to buy essentially a lot of Africans because only a few are going to make it across the voyage to the Americas from Africa. The conditions were horrendous on the ships. They were diseased. The slaves were packed in so tightly, and the conditions on the ships were, like I said, horrendous. So African slaves are going to be introduced to the Americas at this time, and it is a result of the Columbian Exchange.